All right, guys, Basil Mo from Grayson Hobby. Now we're on part 2 of the video build. This is going to be the VTX.
This is going to be the camera and VTX installation.
Just to let you guys know, the first part I actually did build it, and here it is. And it took me about 1 hour from finding my tools.
That's not it.
From finding my tools to 100% completion, took me right under an hour. And that's, if you see my workshop.
It probably took about 45 minutes to find the stuff, probably, right?
So it's a quick build, and so here's part 2. Part 2 VTX?
Yeah, okay guys, so we got the main motor ESCs soldered up. So the next step we're gonna do is actually the VTX. We're gonna, you could do the receiver or the VTX depending on what you have, but we're gonna skip the receivers now because we're gonna do a 3-part video on the receivers. But what we're gonna do today is install, this is the Mateck VTX. We're gonna install that one. And we're gonna wire this up and also do the smart audio or the tramp setup so we can remotely change the power and the channel through the on-screen display through Betaflight. We're also gonna wire up the OSD cable to be able to program your camera through the OSD. Now this is one setup for the RunCam series, so if you're using a Foxy or anything, you'll have to use the wires provided with the kit on that one. We're mainly going to support the RunCam cameras on this one, like the Mini Swift, like what you see here. You're also going to need the wire harness that comes with the camera. So again, in this case, we're using the Mini Swift, so we're going to use the cable that comes with that, and that's a double-headed cable and then cutting in half. And then we're also going to need the factory wires from the CL Racing. This is the 4-in-1 adapter, but since we're not using a 4-in-1 adapter, we're actually going to use 4 of the wires, cut them out, and use that to wire up the VTX. Okay. The VTX comes with 2 different ones. We're actually going to use the one with the pigtail. All right, so what we're going to do here is we need to know what pins we're going to be soldering to. So the pins we're going to be soldering to is your VTX signal. That's for the camera signal to the VTX. The VTX positive, the VTX ground, and TX4. That's where we're going to be able to program through the telemetry port on the VTX. We're also going to be soldering to the camera control with the positive lead from this one. We're going to be soldering the camera signal, positive, and ground with these wires here. And then we're also going to be soldering the camera ground. Again, there's going to be 2 wires coming from the camera ground here. You'll have 2 wires soldered to the camera ground. Some cameras, they already have the ground within it. You don't need it, but I found with the RunCam, I was having issues when it wasn't working with that, so I did wire it up and it started working. So we're going to use that for the video. On the VTX itself, we are going to be using the power in right here, the ground. We're going to be using the TX, that's the programming port, and then we're going to use the video signal there. So it's going to be this one, this one, this one, and this one. The other ones we're not going to use. So let's get everything tinned up and then get the wires cut up, everything tinned up, and then we'll get it laid out and soldered up.
All right, first things first. What's
all right,
first
so we're going to need some wiring here, and we're going to cut this to length first so we can tin all the wires. This is the cable. Again, this cable's not in the aux kit, but with the camera itself. So in this case, it comes with the Mini Swift. So we're going to want about roughly at least 75 millimeters of wire. So if you don't have a ruler, you can cut the RunCam one in half, but
you should have a ruler by now.
You should hopefully have a ruler if you're doing this build, yeah.
Because you're on step 2, so you get...
yeah, if step 1 would have went bad, right? Here, so we got that. So we're gonna be using this one here. The next cable is gonna be, this is the one that comes with the aux build kit. This is the OSD control camera cable for an again, this is for the RunCam. If you have the Foxy, you're gonna have to use your own wiring. We're gonna use at least 80 millimeters or more. This one's already over 80, and it's already tinned on one side, so I'm not gonna bother cutting it down. I'm just gonna use that there.
All right.
The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna cut the CL Racing. This came with the flight controller. We're gonna cut these wires to length, and all I'm gonna do is literally take the harness, clip it there, go to the other side. And
so
again,
you're just using the wires, you're not even using
I'm not using the harness, I'm just using the wires. Ooh, I missed one. If you don't want to cut the harness and you have wire laying around, what we're looking at is about at least 60 millimeters, but about 65 millimeters of wire, 6.5 centimeters.
And what gauge is that, or what kind of
really gauge thin of wire? Your standard like 28. You can use 26, something like that. I wouldn't go too thin on it, because you are carrying the power for the VTX is pulling about 1 amp or so. We do have other wire in the kit too if you want to use that for the power, but I just want to keep it easy, and we're just doing it this way here. Just hold on to this for now. We don't need it.
You never know when you need that.
Yeah, always hang on. I would always hang on to the extra wire until the very end, because you never know when you mess something up and need the wire.
And then keep it for next project.
Or throw it away eventually, which some people do.
Right.
Not me. No, I'm not saying me. I keep all the wire. I got like 10 years worth of bundles. The next step is literally gonna go through, trim. You'll see the pads. These are only probably 3-4 millimeters long at best. So I'm just gonna a couple millimeters off each end just so I can tin all the wiring. You don't want to go too long because you don't want to have exposed wire. You want to have everything, you know, all the silicone covering where the wires are moving or coming out from the board. But I'm gonna go ahead and tin everything up, and then we're gonna solder everything up. All right, so I'm just using a wire stripper. This one I got at a local electronics store.
All right, so you're just taking off, here we go, about 2, 3.
Just a little bit on each side. Again, you don't want to do too long, because if you do too long, then you could potentially have a wire touch another wire short somewhere. So if you are looking for a wire stripper, you can just use an X-Acto knife and not cut all the way through, just cut the silicone jacket. Sharp X-Acto works great. But if you have a tool like this, make sure you can do 26, 28 gauge wire, something like that. It's nice to have. Some of the ones from like Home Depot and Lowe's, they don't go quite as small. This one, for example, goes from 26 to 16 gauge. So they sell them in various ranges. All right, so we got our wires there.
So you stripped the CL Racing harness and the...
Yeah, the wires from the CL Racing 4-in-1 harness that we're not going to be using for a 4-in-1, so we're using that wire
Now
there.
we're going to dip into flux.
Yeah, I'm just going to take everything and dip it in.
Flux is your friend.
And if you need to, like if you cut it and it's all frayed, just twist it up again. You don't want frayed wires. You want to still want it stranded.
Yeah, that's important.
Because if you got frayed wires everywhere, it just makes it harder to solder. So.
And they could short out.
Yeah, and there won't be as strong because it's not stranded anymore. So I got everything tinned there. The iron, somebody asked in the last video, I didn't talk about actually. My iron, it's warming up again because it's been sitting. But I just leave it at the 400 degrees Celsius, but realistically 700, 750 degrees Fahrenheit should be enough. Basically, it depends on the iron. If you got a really wide tip, you might not need as much. This is a fairly small iron. For doing this little wire, 400 degrees Celsius is overkill. You could probably do 300, 350.
Which is about 550 Fahrenheit? On the small stuff,
probably 550, 600 degrees.
But on the big battery terminal,
like
you're probably gonna need the highest it goes.
Yeah, I mean, I use the highest for this, but I mean, as long as you're not holding the heat on it for a long time, you'll probably be okay.
So you're at 400 Celsius for this whole build, right?
Yeah, I'm not. Okay. I'm not taking it off that. It's just what it's on. So, all right. So I'm just gonna go through, tin everything. All right, so again, on the VTX, I'm just gonna go down to the TX pad, the video pad, the negative, and the positive. All right, guys, so the next step is we're gonna attach all the wires to the VTX here. Clean your soldering iron tip with a sponge or a little tool to clean it. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna use yellow for power just because it makes the most sense to me. It's the brightest color for hot lead. See it there. Just moved it. Oh wow, okay. Let that cool before I move. There we go. And we're gonna do black for ground. Because the iron's so hot, the solder actually stayed liquidy longer. Now for the video and TX, video you can use either one, doesn't matter, just as long as you line it up. Yeah, just make sure you know what color you did. The way I'm gonna do this one, let's see, I'm just gonna do that there. And this is why I was saying it's very important to not do too long of exposed lead, because you don't want it bridging across the two. So what we're gonna do here, I'm just gonna put on a slight angle inwards. You can do it outwards, inwards, whatever you want to do on that one. So now we got our 4 wires there. Now pay attention that this wire and these are 2 separate pads, and the wire is coming away from it. If you need to solder on more of an angle to keep away from it, completely up to you. Now, one thing some people might want to do is actually, just to make it easier to keep up with your wire orientation, instead of going inwards, going outwards with the wire. That way it stays more in line with how it's going to solder on the pad.
What do you mean by that, Will?
So what I mean is, instead of soldering it the way I did there, you could solder it the other direction. There. So that way you got your positive ground and signal more in line for your camera leads, and then your TX lead out.
I see. All right, cool.
So at this point, you can put the shrink tube on if you want on the VTX. This is the shrink tube that comes with it. It's very easy to overheat and melt, but you can slide it over there and secure it if you want. I'm not going to worry about it for the sake of the build here, but on my personal one, I did put it over that. Right. And make sure you, if you're going to put the shrink all the way on over that, and then you're going to have to cut out the wires, or cut out the holes and all that for the thing there. In this case, I'm just taking that off. Now guys, because this is a stacked flight controller, I didn't go crazy with the shrink tube over that. You can liquid electrical tape or anything like that over this connector here so it doesn't pop off easily, because these are just snap-on connectors. I ended up putting some of that on one of mine. However though, if you want, you can take some of the shrink tube, put it over that. Just know that it's not going to really hold anything because you have to cut the hole there. So really it's not going to hold very well. I would just take liquid electrical tape, or you could do hot glue, but the heat of it, it's just probably gonna get soft and not hold very well. So liquid electrical tape is probably gonna be your best bet to secure that clip from falling off accidentally, or just be very careful in your build and not do that. See what I'm saying? When you kink it. All right guys, now this step we're gonna solder a total of 9 wires.
9 wires for VTX.
But it's gonna be on, I believe, 8 different pads. So we're gonna go ahead and tin everything up real quick. And again, this is gonna be the camera control. First pad here. And just the second one. The third one, which is the signal. So we got camera control, camera signal, camera positive, and camera ground. And they're clearly labeled on the flight controller, right? Yeah. So we got the 4 up front. That's going to be your camera wire. That's going to be for the wires going to the camera. And on the back side, we're going to do the VTX signal. That's video signal, video positive power, video negative power, and then TX4, which is going to be how you're going to be able to control if you have like a TBS or the Mateck VTX. So that's the pads we're going to tin there. So that gives us all a tin. 8 pads, right? 8 pads total, but it's going to be 9 wires soldered to it because one of them's going to overlap. Yeah. Okay, cool. So the first thing we're going to solder, we're going to actually do the camera side first. In this particular, again, this is for RunCam. If you're using Foxy or any other camera, you may have to change it up. But this is the wire harness we're going to use. So we're going to start with the camera ground, and I'm going to wire them inwards towards the center of the frame because they're going to come up and around through a slot in the top plate. So instead of wiring forward, so that's the back of the quad, right? This is the back of the quad. Okay. So we're going to wire them laying across this way because they're going to come back and up. If you do it to the front, it might pull on the solder joint. This one's this way it's a little better. Okay. So we're going to solder the ground. That's the black wire. That's the black wire on the camera wiring. Okay. Then the positive. And the signal. This is the wire you cut in half in the beginning, right? Yes, this is the one we cut in half. All right, so those are the 3 wires there. Now that we got that, I'm gonna leave them not twisted back up just for now because I'm about to solder 2 more on. But take note that we did the negative, positive, and cam S, which is signal. We did not do the cam C yet, okay? So now we're gonna need this harness here. Now this is not a silicone wire, so you don't wanna hold heat too long because you can actually burn the wiring back a little bit. That wire comes with the kit, right? This is the one that comes with the kit, yeah. So let's clean the iron, and it's best to always work with a clean tip, especially once it's been sitting. The solder tends to get burned and all that, and makes for a dirty solder joint. Yeah. Brown or black, right? So the camera control, we're going to be doing the red lead, which is the camera control. We're going to tin that there, right there, and it doesn't take long at all. Now this is going to be the tricky one when you got 2 wires there. So what I do is I kind of hold it up against it, and then real quick, you'll see actually that camera signal actually lifted up a little bit, so we're gonna desolder that. Get this back. Alright, so now I got them both. I'm kind of holding both wires at the same time. Now I actually put just a dab of flux on there, kind of sucks it better. You can see it cleaned up really quick. Flux is like a magnet for solder. It makes for a lot easier work. So I just put a little dab of flux on that and then hit it, and it soldered right to it. So now we got a nice clean solder joint. You see it's all shiny and smooth. You don't have all the jagged stuff going on everywhere.
So shiny and smooth is good, huh?
Yeah, shiny and smooth is good. All right, so now we got that. Now I'm gonna just basically twist this back up like it was.
No, we have this left.
Yeah. So I'm gonna twist that back up, and you can twist this one as well if you want. So now we got this wire here. Keep in mind, we will be installing a receiver here. So we're gonna wire this up, but we're not gonna mount the VTX yet. We're just gonna kind of leave it to the side while we install the receiver, which will be on the next video, where we'll show the different versions. All right, so what we got here is the first, I'm gonna do from the inside out. So we need the video signal, which is not the top one, but the one along the bottom here, which is actually the blue wire in this case.
So like the middle one almost.
Yeah. VTX signal, we're gonna wire here. And then the next one is VTX positive. That's the positive power. So in this case, it's gonna be my yellow wire. So you'll see in plus here. And then the next one is gonna be VTX ground. So we need the black wire in this case. And then finally the TX4, and you'll see the one that was labeled TX is that top one, which is in this case the green wire. We're gonna solder that top one. Now I'm soldering the wires going this way. If you are having trouble holding the wire because of all those little capacitors there, you can do it the other way as well. This is nice silicone wire, and the VTX is not getting moved around a lot. So if it's easier for you to install the wire facing the other way, it's not as big of a deal on this one because you're less likely to be tugging on these wires compared to the camera wires, because the camera wires are going to be on that top hatch if you ever have to work on it, or service or get to the border. Just lightly twist that up. VTX is going to go like so. And then you'll use 2 lock nuts to secure it. But again, the next step is going to be our receiver, so we're not going to mount this just yet. We're gonna leave it to the side until we mount the receiver in the following steps. And that's the one where it's gonna branch out to different receivers. So we're gonna show you the wiring for the receiver there, and then we're gonna get everything mounted up. Right. And ultimately, the camera we're gonna install next. The M2 wrench. I'm just gonna pull this top plate here. So just just stretch it apart just a little bit, and you should be able to lift this camera plate out. Stand off the side plate there. This will give you the ability to drop in the camera. This being a RunCam Mini, we do need the bracket. Okay, so we got the RunCam Mini Swift. In the hardware set that comes with the camera, it comes with a little Allen wrench too, but there's 2 long screws here and little washers, so we'll need that to mount the outside of the camera to the plates. And then there's 4 little screws here, which we're gonna be mounting. You're just gonna put the bracket together.
Self-explanatory. If you got this far, it should be rock and roll.
Yeah.
All right, so now you get that.
All right, so we got the brackets installed with the shorter screws. We're just gonna drop it in here, frame, and it actually holds really tight on these plates here. Up and run the screws in the side. I'm not gonna tighten anything down yet on these outer ones until I get everything mounted in the way I like it. All right, guys, so when you install the camera, make sure the plugs are facing up on the RunCam. If you do it upside down, your video is gonna be upside down, so make sure you plug in, put it to where the cables face upwards. We're just gonna run these wires through here.
The little hole in the bottom?
Yep, there's a slot right dead center in the middle. We're gonna run them through there. And then we're just gonna plug in the camera. And it's best to do this and put that top plate on at the very last step. So this is kind of jumping ahead after you've installed your receiver. You'll see that once everything's together, looking more like a quad here. Now guys, if you are gonna power this up and jump the gun, please remember to leave put an antenna on it and plug it in, hook it up. You don't want to burn out your VTX because you didn't set your antenna on it.
All right, so that is the VTX and camera. Good job.
Now we have all the wiring done here. So the next video is going to be showing how to install some of the receivers on the market that will go on the Squad.
XM
Plus, and some of the Spectrum ones. Yes.
And then, yeah, whatever else is up. So remember, 9 wires, 8 pads.
Yep.
See, I remember.
See you guys in the next video.